Crimson flames clawed at the sky, transforming the proud towers of Altharion into skeletal silhouettes against the raging inferno. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid stench of burning wood, a bitter taste of the city's agonizing demise. Amidst the chaos, the guttural war cries of Hyrule warriors pierced through the panicked screams of Altharion citizens, creating a horrific symphony that echoed through the once grand streets. Ironclad boots crashed against cobblestone, herding the fleeing populace toward a fate worse than death. Lyra, her name hung in the air like a silent scream, tearing at Theron's throat. He watched, paralyzed, as they dragged her, a vibrant flower amidst a field of mud and blood, her eyes reflecting the firestorm consuming her home. Terror stretched her features toward his rough hands, adorned with crude, spiked gauntlets, clamped around her arms, pulling her into a ravenous horde. She vanished into the shadows of the invading army, swallowed by the brutal advance, leaving behind only the haunting echo of a desperate cry. From the shadowed alleyway, Theron, barely a man, witnessed the brutal ballet of conquest. His heart felt like a leaden weight in his chest, mirroring the crushing despair of his kingdom. Everything familiar, everything loved, was being ripped away, reduced to ash and memory. Altharion, once the unyielding kingdom, was falling. As the last embers of hope flickered and died, Theron turned and ran, melting into the wilderness, carrying the weight of a fallen kingdom on his young shoulders, its last, fragile hope fading with every fleeing step. For countless generations, the empire of Oronda stood as a symbol of dominance, its vast territories governed by the unbroken emperors. 5 kingdoms flourished within its domain, each possessing a distinct character, each known for the animal their royal houses chose to ride and embody in war. First was Varenth, the kingdom of tigers, whose warriors were driven by aggressive ambition, forever seeking greater dominion. Their royal riders mounted fearsome tigers, whose roars echoed their kingdom's hunger for power. Beside them stood Lycosia, the kingdom of wolves. Disciplined and united, the armies of Lycosia were renowned for their strategic prowess and unwavering loyalty, their royal family leading them into battle astride swift, cunning wolves. Then came Verkor, the kingdom of bays, where stoic and resilient people embraced traditions deeply rooted in their past. Their royal lords, even in times of defeat, rode into war upon massive bays, symbols of enduring strength. To the east lay Hyrule, the kingdom of hyenas, spoken of in hushed tones. Their warriors were as ruthless and opportunistic as the hyenas they rode, known for their cunning and ferocity. And at the heart of the empire, diminished but not forgotten, lay Altharion. Once, it was a most revered kingdom, its knights celebrated throughout Oronda for unmatched valor, a legacy now tarnished and suppressed. For centuries, a delicate peace persisted between these kingdoms, enforced by the Emperor's might and a carefully managed equilibrium of influence. Altharion had once occupied a position of unparalleled honor. Their knights, famed for extraordinary bravery and martial skill, were more than mere soldiers. They embodied Oronda's might. Legends recounted the sight of their polished armor gleaming in the sunlight as they charged into conflict, accompanied by powerful war animals whose roars inspired or in terror a vision of invincible force. Then, the Shadow War erupted, threatening to tear Oronda asunder. In that dire time, Altharion served as the Empire's shield. Their knights met the enemy's onslaught unflinchingly, absorbing the devastating blows. They fought with a resolve that surpassed mortal limits, providing crucial time for the other kingdoms to mobilize and prepare. Yet, victory demanded a horrific cost. On the bloody fields of Blackfen, Altharion's military might was shattered. The noble war animals that fought alongside their riders with unwavering loyalty became prime targets. Their inspiring roars were brutally silenced, their ancient lineages nearly eradicated. Altharion secured the Empire's survival but suffered a devastating loss. In the aftermath of the war, instead of gratitude, envy and rampant ambition festered in the hearts of Varenth and Lycosia. Recognizing Altharion's weakened state, they exploited the kingdom's profound grief, twisting the narrative of Altharien's sacrifice into one of inherent frailty. Doubts about Altharien's right to its former eminence were propagated, questioning their continued leadership. Gradually, Altharien's long-held privileges were systematically revoked, their territories incrementally seized, and their proud spirit deliberately broken. The resounding strength of Altharien was muted, not only by death and destruction, but through calculated political maneuvering. Any public display of their past glory, any recognition of their war-animal's heroism, became discouraged, then actively prohibited, an agonizing reminder of their immense loss and unjust humiliation. The once venerated kingdom was intentionally left to decline, its spirit crushed, its glorious history buried beneath layers of imposed silence and manufactured shame. A heavy silence descended upon Oronda the moment Emperor Vayan, the Unbroken, drew his final breath. For almost a century, his will had been the Empire's unshakable foundation, his decree absolute, his very existence a guarantee of stability. Now, that foundation was gone, leaving a void that chaos rushed to fill. Like a dam bursting under immense pressure, hushed murmurs of dissent swelled into outright rebellion, age-old grievances resurfacing with renewed venom, and ambition, long held in check, erupted with unrestrained force. The fragile peace that Vayan had so meticulously crafted began to shatter, and the intoxicating scent of unchecked power and ruthless opportunity billowed across the empire like smoke from a wildfire. In Hyrule, King Kayla, known as a cunning, inhaled these treacherous winds with relish. A ruler who prized cold calculation above all virtues, his mind was a labyrinth of intricate plots and long-game strategies. For years, he had meticulously observed Altharien, patiently scanning every nuance for a sign of vulnerability. Now, with the Emperor's unifying hand removed and the central authority crumbling, Kayla saw not merely a weakened enemy but an open banquet, a kingdom stripped of its pride, its spirit broken, and its defenses woefully neglected, almost pleading to be plundered. Yet Kayla did not act on impulse alone. In the shadows, King Malika of Varanth, whose ambitions and keen sense of regional power dynamics had long been concealed beneath a veneer of diplomacy, had recognized the immense advantages offered by the destabilization of the region. Malika, a strategist as cunning as he was ruthless, had been subtly feeding Kayla information and encouragement, drawing upon his own secret network of spies and informants. He knew that the chaos following the Emperor's demise could be molded into an opportunity for total dominance. With his calculated persuasion, Malika had convinced Kayla that now was the perfect moment to strike, a moment when Altharien's vulnerabilities were laid bare before them. Thus, with Malika's covert support fueling his ambition, Kayla initiated his meticulously crafted plan. The invasion of Altharien would be executed like a lightning strike, swift, mercilessly brutal, and utterly decisive. Every detail was designed to leave no room for resistance or recovery. In this grand design, Malika's influence was pivotal, ensuring that every misstep within Altharien's crumbling defenses was noted and exploited, and that the ensuing power vacuum would ultimately serve to realign the regional balance in their favor. Together, the two kings aimed to rewrite the fate of Oronda, setting in motion events that would change the Empire's destiny forever. For Theron, life within Altharien's diminished borders had always been defined by the weight of past glories, a subdued existence amidst hushed tales of legendary lion knights and almost forgotten acts of heroism. A blacksmith's apprentice laboring in Eldoria, his days were measured by the rhythmic clang of hammer against steel, the searing breath of the forge, the predictable cadence of a life intentionally kept small. Yet, he felt an undercurrent of difference within himself, a sense of being somehow separate, emphasized by the knowing, mournful gaze from his mother and the veiled, respectful nods from elder townsfolk. The true nature of his lineage remained a closely guarded secret, woven into the fabric of his quiet life. His true sanctuary, his sole source of light and joy, was Lyra. Her spontaneous laughter was the most vibrant melody in his muted world, her spirit as fierce and untamed as the fabled lines of Altherian's past, lions whose name was now barely whispered, their memory fading from the kingdom's consciousness. The tempest of war descended without prelude. One heartbeat, Eldoria was steeped in quiet melancholy. The next, it convulsed in chaos. Hyrakar's armies, a relentless wave of efficient warriors, crashed against Altherian's long-neglected borders with terrifying speed. Distorted reports trickled into Eldoria. Outlying villages reduced to ruins, undermanned garrisons annihilated. Then, with chilling inevitability, they hammered at Eldoria's gates. Fueled by adrenaline and protectiveness, Theron fought shoulder to shoulder with the city guard, a chaotic, tragically futile attempt to stem the tide. He witnessed the hyena riders firsthand, faces contorted with savage glee, eyes burning with cruel intent, their mounts tearing through the hastily assembled defenses as if they were paper. He fought with the desperation of a cornered animal, for his home, his people, and the vibrant spirit of Lyra, but chaos was the only victor. The remnants of Eldoria's royal house were swiftly overwhelmed. Theron's blood ran cold as he saw King Kayla himself, radiating an aura of chilling cruelty, orchestrate the systematic slaughter of captured Altherionian royals, the ancient bloodline extinguished with horrifying efficiency. And then, amidst the carnage, his gaze locked onto Lyra. She was dragged, struggling fiercely against her captors, from the shattered doorway of her home. Their eyes collided across the smoke-choked square. In that agonizing instant, time fractured. He saw the stark terror etched upon her face, but beneath it, an unquenchable spark of defiance flickered. Then, with sickening finality, she was gone, swallowed by the surging tide of invaders, destined to become yet another spoil of war, a prize for the Hyena King's depraved desires. The spectacle of Lyra's capture shattered something fundamental within Theron. A cold, rational survival instinct seized him. He knew that if he remained, rooted by grief and terror, he would achieve nothing but his own meaningless death, and Lyra would be irrevocably lost. Under the swirling concealment of smoke and debris, he made the agonizing choice to flee, to live, to perhaps find a way to fight another day. He slipped away through the smoldering ruins of his shattered life, carrying the burning image of Lyra's captured eyes and the soul-crushing weight of Altherian full indelibly imprinted upon his heart. His escape was not an act of valor, but a heartbroken necessity, a silent promise whispered to the ashes of his kingdom, "I will survive." Theron plunged into the untamed heart of Altherion, a land now rendered alien and hostile by his grief. The once familiar forests and rolling hills mocked him with their serene indifference. Despair became his unwelcome shadow, whispering corrosive doubts into his mind, urging him to surrender to sorrow. Yet, a stubborn spark of defiance, fueled by sheer will, refused to be extinguished. Lyra's last defiant gaze, burning with spirit even in captivity, the fragmented memories of Altherian's glory. These became the fragile fuel for a nascent ember of resolve. He would not succumb to mourning. He would fight back. But what could a solitary fugitive, stripped of everything but raw grief and the blacksmith's hands, realistically undertake against a ruthless kingdom like Hyrule? The answer arose not from the bleak reality of Altharian's occupation, but from the almost forgotten legends clinging to the edges of the kingdom's memory, whispered lore of its most glorious past. Tales of legendary lion knights, once dismissed as fanciful folklore, pulsed with strange power. He clung to fragmented snippets of stories overheard in his youth, hushed whispers exchanged in taverns, verses of ancient songs sung in secret corners, glimpses of lions depicted not merely as war beasts but as guardians, creatures of immense wisdom and untamed power, linked to Altharian's royal bloodline. Could there be even a grain of truth buried within these fantastical myths? Desperate, Theron grasped at these stories as a drowning man clutches driftwood, seeking any conceivable sliver of hope amidst the darkness. He began to seek out these deliberately obscured narratives, venturing into isolated villages, searching for the oldest inhabitants, the keepers of Altharian's suppressed history. Through arduous journeys and hushed conversations, he learned the secluded, almost mythical locations, hidden sacred groves deep within ancient forests, long-forgotten caves nestled in remote valleys, places whispered to be imbued with the lingering magic of the vanished lions. One name surfaced with haunting regularity: Shirian, the last lion. It sounded impossible, the stuff of children's stories. Yet, the conviction in the aged eyes of those who spoke the name planted a fragile seed of hope in Theron's heart. Guided by tattered maps and cryptic directions gleaned from these unlikely historians, Theron commenced a treacherous journey into the uncharted, brutal wilderness of Altharian. Days blurred into weeks, each sunrise indistinguishable in their bleakness. Relentless hunger gnawed at his insides, exhaustion became a bone-deep condition, and corrosive doubt eroded his fragile resolve. Countless times, his weary body screamed at him to turn back, to abandon this fool's errand. Logic urged him to acknowledge the futility of his quest, to accept the reality of Altharian's defeat. But each time, just as his resolve threatened to shatter, the vivid image of Lara's face, contorted with terror yet radiating defiance, flashed into his mind. These memories became his anchors, dragging him back from surrender, spurring him onward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of struggle, he found it, the cave, concealed behind a roaring curtain of icy water cascading down a sheer cliff. It seemed to be swallowed by the reclaiming wilderness. An aura of ancient power emanated from the cave's shadowed mouth, a profound sense of something significant waiting within the earth's embrace. Heart-hammering, a mixture of fear and anticipation churned within him as Theron stepped across the threshold into the darkness. The cave's interior was breathtaking in its scale, dwarfing anything Theron could have imagined. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the scent of ancient earth and something indefinable yet evocative, something profoundly wild and regal. And then, emerging from the shadows, he saw him. In the heart of the cavern, bathed in a shaft of golden light piercing through the ceiling, lay a lion. Not just any lion. This was Shirian, colossal, his muscles rippling beneath a coat the color of sun-scorched sand, his magnificent mane a storm of dark gold and shadow, framing a face carved from granite. His eyes, luminous and unsettlingly intelligent, held the accumulated weight of centuries of silent observation and untamed power. A low, guttural growl rumbled deep within his chest, a sound that spoke of immense reserves of barely contained energy. Raw fear warred with awe in Theron's heart, yet he stood his ground, drawn further into the cavern by an irresistible force. Shirian raised his massive head, his ancient gaze locking onto Theron's. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions and ancient expectations. Finally, with a deliberate exhalation, Shirian spoke. "You seek the legends, youngling." It was not a question but a statement of fact. Theron, trembling yet resolute, managed to respond. "The legends of Altharian, of the lions." Shirian shifted his weight, his gaze intensifying, piercing into Theron's soul. "The lions are not mere beasts of war. We are guardians. We choose our riders, never the reverse. For generations, we have silently watched the royal bloodline of Altharion, patiently waiting for a heart worthy enough to carry the mantle of the Lion Rider. He paused, assessing Theron. The unmistakable scent of royal blood runs strong within you, whelp of Altharion. But lineage alone means nothing. True worthiness is forged in adversity, in suffering, that must be owned. Hyrule has stolen my birthright, Theron declared, his voice cracking with pain and burgeoning rage. They have enslaved my people, captured Lyra, slaughtered my kin, extinguishing my bloodline. Shirian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of fury igniting within their depths. Hyrule, the scavengers of Oronda, they dare defile sacred ground. With a majestic movement, he rose to his full height, radiating an aura of ancient authority. For generations, we, the Lions of Altharion, have remained hidden from unworthy rulers, rejecting those corrupted by power. But beneath your despair, youngling, I sense a spark, a flicker of a true lion heart. He lowered his head, sniffing the air currents swirling around Theron, then raised his gaze, locking his stare into Theron's eyes. You have lost everything that defined you, youngling, but profound loss can forge unimaginable strength, tempering the spirit into unbreakable steel. Tell me, whelp of Altharion, what definitive action will you undertake now that everything has been taken from you? A surge of hope erupted in Theron's chest, banishing despair like a sunrise-shattering night. The ember of resolve ignited into a flame of purpose. He straightened, meeting Shirian's gaze with newfound conviction. I will reclaim Altharion from the Hyena King's grasp, he declared. I will liberate my people, avenge my family, and restore Altharion's roar to its former glory. A powerful smile stretched across Shirian's muzzle. Then rise, whelp of Altharion, for you are no longer a blacksmith's apprentice burdened by grief. You are now a Lion Rider, reborn. I am Shirian, the last of my kind, and I pledge myself to you, your mount, your guide, and your sword against the encroaching darkness. News of the Lion's miraculous return spread through Altharion like wildfire. Whispers of hope transformed into shouts of liberation. Dissidents emerged from the shadows, emboldened by the impossible news. Altharionians began to flee Hyrule's grip, drawn by the promise of a returned lion and a prophesied rider. Even from Variant and Lycosia, those chafing under their ruler's ambitions heard the call and sought a leader worthy of their allegiance. Theron became a beacon of hope in the darkness, training his growing army in secluded valleys, Shirian always by his side, a symbol of defiant resistance. He selected the bravest and most loyal to become the first of a new generation of Lion Riders, elite warriors ready to ride into battle alongside the magnificent war lion, an awe-inspiring spectacle that Oronda had believed banished forever. The ancient war drums of Altharion erupted in a thunderous rhythm, calling the kingdom back to life. Theron, now Everion's the warrior king, sat ramrod straight atop Shirian's immense back, leading his resurgent army toward Hyrule's imposing stronghold, a fortress of black stone and brutal angles, perched precariously atop jagged cliffs, seemingly mocking Altharion's desperate hope of reclamation. But hope was no longer fragile. It was a roaring fire, reflected in the polished steel of 1,000 newly forged blades and the unwavering gazes of his hardened, vengeance-driven warriors. As they crested the final ridge, The full panorama of the approaching Lion Rider host unfurled before the defenders of Hyrule. A visible shockwave of raw fear rippled through the ranks of the occupying army. The Hyena warriors, who had swaggered with cruel confidence through Altharian's lands, now stood frozen, their arrogance evaporating like mist under a scorching sun, staring wide-eyed at the approaching spectacle. The legendary lions, once dismissed as mere myths, were not only real but were leading a vengeful army poised to crash against Hyrule's arrogance. The siege commenced with a furious, unrestrained assault, a maelstrom of righteous fury unleashed after years of agonizing oppression. Altharionian infantry surged toward the fortress's seemingly insurmountable walls, their hearts ablaze with long-suppressed rage and a burning desire for liberation. They advanced under a storm of arrows, protected by hastily constructed siege towers pushed forward by sheer manpower and shielded by overlapping ranks of archers who traded volley for volley with grim determination. Hyrule's archers, perched on the ramparts, rained down flights of black-feathered arrows and hurled jagged rocks, but the momentum was unstoppable, the tide of rebellion too high to turn back. Then, with an earth-shaking roar that cut through the din of battle, the armies were unleashed. Led by Shirian, they became a force of nature, the fearsome embodiment of Altharian's awakened wrath. Leaping over cumbersome siege engines, scaling sheer walls, the lion tore through the panicked ranks of Hyrule's defenders with fearsome speed and brute strength. The ground echoed with the ancient roar of lions, a sound Oronda had not heard in living memory, mingled with the clash of steel and the screams of the dying. It was a symphony of chaos and vengeance that would shake the fortress of Hyrule to its foundations and herald the dawn of a new age. Amidst the overwhelming turmoil of the siege, Lyra, the blacksmith's daughter with the heart of a lioness, moved with ghost-like stealth within the fortress. King Kayla, blinded by arrogance, had underestimated her spirit, dismissing her as a made prize ripe for exploitation. But Kayla had miscalculated. Lyra was Altharionian to her core, her heart burning with the same fierce defiance that now propelled Theron's army. Exploiting her forced position within the fortress, she navigated hidden service tunnels and forgotten passageways, sabotaging critical defenses and freeing bewildered Altharionian prisoners. With meticulous precision, she transformed them into an impromptu fifth column, rising from within to tear at the entrails of their captor's stronghold. As a mighty Shirian broke through the outer walls, chaos erupted within the fortress, confusion mounting as Hyrule's defenses turned against themselves. In the midst of the carnage, King Kayla appeared mounted on his colossal hyena, a fearsome figure that darkened the skies above. With a deafening roar, Shirian descended from his elevated charge to confront the beast, his powerful form carving a path of devastation toward the fortress's heart. After dismounting from his enormous hyena atop the blood-slicked ramparts, King Kayla boldly challenged Theron to battle. The two titans, one reborn as a living embodiment of Altharian's hope, the other a ruthless symbol of tyranny, clashed in a duel of wills and steel. While Shirian dueled a massive hyena with controlled ferocity, every movement precise and devastatingly effective, the courtyard erupted into a whirlwind of flashing blades and oath-shattering roars, each clash echoing the suffering of Altharian. Driven by righteous vengeance and the burning need to reclaim his stolen birthright, Theron fought with a fury that transcended his former self. In a final, desperate lunge fueled by adrenaline and the memory of his fallen kin, he disarmed Kayla, sending the Hyena King's sword spinning through the air. With his blade poised at Kayla's exposed throat, a harbinger of justice, Theron growled, "This is for Altharian." In that moment, Kayla's eyes, wide with terror, reflected the inferno consuming his ambitions. With one swift, decisive motion, Theron ended Kayla's tyrannical reign, silencing the hyena's cruelty forever. As Kaela's lifeless body slumped from the ramparts, a unified roar erupted from the Althurionian forces, a deafening sound of liberation and vengeance achieved. Hyraka's remaining troops, witnessing the fall of their king and the resurgence of the Lion Riders, scattered in disarray, their meticulously planned invasion collapsing as abruptly as it had begun. The fortress of Hyrakal, once a chilling symbol of oppression, was irrevocably stormed. Altharian's ancient banner, emblazoned with the roaring lion, was ceremoniously raised above the highest tower, a declaration of hard-won liberation, visible for miles across the ravaged landscape, a beacon of hope piercing through the smoke of war. In the immediate aftermath, Altharian was a kingdom reborn from ashes, yet stained by the fires of war. Victory tasted bittersweet. Liberation came at a heavy cost. Eldoria and Hyraka's fortress were scarred monuments to the brutal conflict. Yet amidst the devastation, a resilient spirit surged. Althurionians emerged from hiding and enslavement, their faces etched with exhaustion but their eyes alight with newfound hope. Theron, hailed as a liberator, returned to Eldoria, not as a fugitive but as a triumphant leader, Shirian's majestic presence a constant reassurance to his weary people. The coronation was a somber yet glorious affair. Amidst the ruins of Eldoria's great hall, Theron knelt not before a traditional crown. Hyraka had plundered such symbols, but before Shirian. The lion lowered his head, and Theron placed his hand upon Shirian's brow, a gesture of mutual fealty. The roar that followed from the assembled Althurionians was not mere acclamation, but a vow of loyalty to their king and the reborn spirit of their kingdom. Lyra, freed from captivity, stood at Theron's side, no longer a captive but a figure of strength and invaluable counsel. Theron declared her his advisor, recognizing her as the heart of Altharian's resilience. Hyraka ceased to exist as a kingdom. Its surviving warriors, leaderless and broken, were absorbed into Altharian's ranks, their identity dissolved. Justice was tempered with mercy. Those who had participated in atrocities were held accountable, but common Hyraka citizens were offered a path to integration into Altharian, a chance to rebuild alongside those they had once oppressed. It was a difficult peace, but Theron, guided by Lyra's wisdom, navigated it with a steady hand, prioritizing unity above retribution. Yet, even in victory, shadows loomed. News arrived from the north. Variant and Lycosia, emboldened by chaos and Hyraka's demise, had turned their might upon Verkhul. The Stoic kingdom, weakened by previous conflicts, stood little chance against this coordinated assault. Rumors reached Altharian that King Malika of Variant, flushed with conquest, had declared himself the new emperor of Orunda, demanding immediate allegiance from all remaining kingdoms. The fragile peace Theron had forged was now threatened by a new, formidable shadow rising in the north. In the heart of Variant, King Malika surveyed his war room. Maps of Orunda spread across a massive table, each kingdom marked like pieces on a game board. Beside him stood the Lycosian king, an uneasy ally in his grand design. Altharian believes they have won, Malika rumbled, a cool smile twisting his lips. They celebrate a victory that will be short-lived. He slammed a fist onto the map directly over Altharian. The lion may roar again, but the tiger will devour the entire empire. His eyes gleamed with ambition, fixed on the horizon, and Orunda will tremble before its true emperor. As the winds of change swept through Orunda, Theron stood at the edge of a new dawn. The roar of Altharian had returned, but the battle for the empire was only beginning. United under the banner of the Lion, Theron and Lyra prepared to face the looming threat, determined to reclaim not just their kingdom but the very soul of Orunda itself. The saga of Altharian was far from over. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter in a tale of courage, resilience, and the unyielding spirit of a people who had risen from the ashes to reclaim their destiny.